We've all heard the phrase, he was at the right place at the right time. Hey, if you want to learn how to be at the right place at the right time, keep listening to this podcast. We're going to teach you how to do that and more.
Most people chase success. Few build it on a foundation that lasts. On the Invested Life with DanCan, we explore the intersection of faith, business, and personal growth, helping you invest in what matters most. This is your space to protect, provide, and promote with purpose. Join us now and start building a life you truly love.
Hey, I'm Dan Can. Welcome to the Invested Life podcast. This is the podcast where we believe that we should invest in ourselves, others, and what we're called to do. We believe we do that by providing, protecting, and promoting. If you're a leader, husband, father, business owner, if you work for a nonprofit, teacher, hey, if you're alive and breathing, you want to know these principles. I am so excited that you're here. I have the amazing opportunity to introduce you to a great friend of mine. His name is Kyle. His last name is Jordan, and he is definitely the GOAT of accounting and opportunity. I cannot wait for you to hear his story about how he began his career and how his career has evolved and just manifested into this wonderful opportunity where he gets to provide for his family, he gets to provide for his team, and then also the way that he specifically helps provide for his clients. So without any further ado or waiting, let's say hi to Kyle.
Good morning, Dan. How's it going?
Good, man. I'm thankful you're here. I know you're a busy man, and so I'm glad that you etched out some time for me and the podcast here. I always like to start this with just basically how the Bible rolls, right? Start at the beginning, the Genesis. And so if you could you just, I love your story, man. And I know I tell you this like every other time I see you, but if you could just give a short bio of you as a person, and then and then just jump into, your college experience and how that manifested into what you currently are the captain / president of.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to doing this. And I'll try to keep the intro quick and sweet, but I'll give you just a quick backstory. So I was born and raised in Spokane, Washington here, and grew up on the north side and kind of always knew I was going to be in Spokane for the long haul. I got family here. I went to a small Christian university, Whitworth University. It is a fantastic school. And my biggest welcome to life and business realization was my freshman year of Whitworth. My parents had always told me they were going to make me pay for my college to really appreciate what I was doing and what I was paying for. And I didn't fully understand what that meant until my first tuition bill came in the mail. And I realized I did not have enough money to cover the second tuition bill next month. And so like every young college kid who is short on funds and high on aspirations, I had to start learning the hard way about what life was all about from a business and financial acumen standpoint. And so I reached out to some good friends I had, actually a Mormon family here in Spokane that mowed lawns around their neighborhood. And, I would work really hard at part-time jobs that most high school and college kids had. And I'd get to the end of a 2-week period and I probably made $70. And they would tell me how they mowed a couple lawns and made $70 and were done at 11 a.m. And so they got me into mowing lawns as a college student, which was the greatest teacher of business that I had. Sorry to all my professors at Whitworth University, you were great, but I learned more mowing lawns. And so during my 4 years at Whitworth, I went from having no job and trying to figure out how I was going to survive financially to building a lawn care business that started with me and my dad's trailer and my dad's lawnmower. And by the time I graduated at Whitworth, I was mowing 85 lawns a week. And in the years following my Whitworth graduation, that business ballooned up to 350 lawns a week before I sold it. So it was a great jump starter for me, learning how the real business world works, learning a bunch of hands-on skills, interacting with clients, invoicing, business operations, etc., taxes, all the fun things that people need to learn. And one of my best mentors in life was my uncle, who was an accountant in Spokane. And At Whitworth, I pursued my accounting degree, knowing that I was going to go into accounting. I kind of was in this crossroad. I had this thriving lawn and landscape business that was growing, and he kind of pulled me aside and said, "You don't want to mow lawns the rest of your life. You got to use your degree." And so went to work for him at his accounting firm, and that was
Hey, Kyle, I can't hear you, brother. Can you hear me?
So in 2017, I was approached by a CPA here in Spokane who was preparing to transition to retirement, and he was looking to sell his CPA firm. And the crazy part of that story is the reason he called me is because I mowed his lawn while I was going to college. And the irony of that story is he had never seen me prepare a tax return. He had never seen me work in the accounting profession. And at a lunch meeting, I asked him, I said, "Why are you asking me to buy your very successful accounting business? I could be the worst accountant in the world." And he said, "I remembered how you showed up in my driveway at 7 a.m. on the dot, rain or shine, for 4 straight years." And I said, "That kid's going to be really successful." So, in life, you never know who you're going to mow a lawn for, and you never know what it's going to lead to. But I was incredibly blessed to take over a thriving CPA firm in the Spokane area from him, and couldn't be more blessed and thankful. Our office is located, like I said, in Spokane. We employ 18 individuals and provide business and individual tax services, as well as a bevy of other accounting and financial services to small businesses and individuals. So that's my quick backstory.
So I love it. And so, desperation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I got this bill. I'm 18. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, I can only work at McDonald's so many hours, right? Not that you were working there, but you got this hourly gig, and it's like, hey, this ain't working. And so you're like, hey, I'm going to go, I can mow a lawn. And I love that. And, if there was a title for this podcast, it's like, hey, how to learn how to be at the right place at the right time. And so you didn't fold, right? You became a problem solver. And you're like, hey, I can do this. I can go to school and I can go start mowing lawns. 1, 2, 3, 75, 350 when you leave. You're working at school, right? Which is hard. Taking full load, and more than likely, right? And then you start mowing these lawns. And this is what I love about your story. No excuses.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem. I'm going to fix it. That's what leaders do, right?
And I probably, my coworker or my co-students in my accounting classes normally didn't sit next to me because I would park my trailer and truck anywhere I could find on campus, and I smelled like gasoline and grass. And I would roll in for a class, and I would sit down for the 45-minute class, and then I'd be back out mowing lawns. And so apologies to people.
I've never heard the story
in the late spring, but it was awesome. And I had one teacher who I wasn't doing so well in his business law class because I knew I wasn't going to be an attorney and I wasn't interested in the law. And he actually gave me +5 on a test I didn't do very well on. And he wrote, "You're working really hard." sympathy +5. So I know at least.
So the gasoline got you 5 points.
Correct. Yeah. So probably took me from like a C to a B-.
Gasoline, 5 points. Take note, kids. So we focus on principles and not personality on the podcast here. Is so the principle that I want everyone to hear and tell myself is, hey, he had a problem. He went and fixed it. He didn't hide. He didn't moan, right? And obviously you had the support of your dad, which is great. And you want to have community, and you've honored your dad and your family, which is awesome ever since I've known you. On this show, we focus on how to provide, protect, and promote. And so at 18, you had this, you had this seed of like, hey, I can do this. You had some support, which is great. We believe in community. The Bible is very clear about living in community and family. And so you do this. So first and foremost, 1, problem solver, right? 2, and please write this down if you got your journal, DanCan listeners. Character counts. Character counts. And that's what I love about this first Genesis, being in the right place at the right time. Literally at 7 a.m., the gentleman says, right, hey, you came for 4 years, rain or shine. Like, here you are killing it. And he's ready to, I assume it was multi-million-dollar top revenue business. And how did you know that when you had a $55 lawnmower, right? But that's how God works, right? That's how story works. That's how community works. And so if you want to be in the right place at the right time, you got to show up, right? You got to show up. And I could tell you, you were a business owner during COVID and all this other great stuff. Man, showing up became a radical asset when it should just be a basic. And, I don't want to get into politics and all that, but man, you got to show up and show out. And it doesn't look like always hitting the winning basket. It looks like doing your part on the team. And that's what you did. You had Team Kyle and you went to work. And then now look at your team. You got a beautiful wife, wonderful kids, daughters. You got fantastic team members. Yeah. You're serving your customers like crazy good. So that's the first genesis. So first one's this, man, right place, right time. Character counts, show up, right? Now, if you could just tell us a little bit about this new niche that you have in the accounting side with how you helped, and I don't want to offend the gentleman because he has a name, but, he came to WSU, was not nationally known, and then what happened in that whole scenario and how you've etched out this new niche.
Sure. So, the overarching theme that I really want to hit on is, and you kind of mentioned it there, in everything that I've done in life and everything that you do in life, you need to give 110% effort because you don't know who's watching. The man who I mowed his lawn and purchased his accounting firm from, if I had not shown up 2 or 3 times, if I had done a shoddy job a couple of times, opportunities that came to me would not have happened by those decisions, but it was the decision that rain or shine, I was going to be there. And, as I transfer into this next section of my career, one niche thing that my CPA firm has gotten heavily involved in that's very unique is we've transitioned into specifically working with college and professional athletes with tax problems and tax filings and tax structuring. A couple of years back, the NCAA allowed college athletes to begin getting paid for their revenue they were helping the schools produce through name, image, and likeness. And at the time, I've always grown up a sports fan. I was watching sports from a distance, but I live in Spokane, Washington. Let's be real. We've got the Spokane Chiefs who are living in people's basement, and we got Gonzaga basketball. It's not exactly a sports hotbed of opportunity. And so a young college athlete at Washington State University came into my office. His father contacted me and said, my son needs some tax help. He's got a chance to be a quarterback at Washington State. And I was tremendously blessed because it was the first time I'd gotten to integrate my career with sports. And at the time, it was an absolute dream, and you didn't really think anything would come of it. But that underarching principle of you have to give 110% of your effort to people, regardless of what the future will hold with them, because you really just don't know. And over the next 3 years, I was able to work with this individual, working through all the nuances and new things that arose from the NIL sphere, college athletes making money. And he went on an unreal ascension that led to him being a very prominent NFL draft pick. And along the way, I think some of that equity and some of that goodwill that was built up in the years of giving 110% effort when the future wasn't out there allowed for a really healthy and good relationship to be built. And that relationship opened the doors to all of the college athletes that I work with across the country now. My wife and I just finished a fall tour in which we went to 8 college football, college and NFL games in a 7-week span.
Let's go, listen.
I'm very glad that I am home now for a while. But I mean, getting to travel the country and watch college athletes that I assist with their taxes would have been a dream come true to 18-year-old Kyle. And I can realistically peel it back and say, had I not showed up to mow a lawn, I would not have been in the situation to, acquire the accounting practice. That accounting practice led to this relationship, which led to doing the fun things I do today. And so, so blessed to be where I'm at and continue to see God open doors for things that really were outside of my personal belief of where I could go in my career and what I could do. So I'm incredibly humbled.
Yeah. And, what I love about that story is, and I believe this, we're all on a journey, correct? And that journey takes steps. And sometimes you just take a step and it's in faith, right? Mm-hmm. And so you you have this opportunity, and really, you were fairly young to purchase that building. I'm sorry, the business, right? You're fairly young, but you have the capacity, right? You have the character. This older gentleman saw that, took a risk. Obviously, you took a risk. Works out. You develop a name for yourself within the industry. You're very bright. And if I remember correctly, this family was referred to you by some current clients.
Correct.
And so we talk a lot about referrals. We talk a lot about networking. Last week we had Bob Bodine, The Power of Who. If you haven't read that book yet, please read it, everybody. It's amazing. But it really was that who moment. And you get referred, you take care of this gentleman. And what I love about you is what I've seen over the years is you treat everyone the same who's in front of you, whether, NFL draft or someone I've noticed you talking at church. Like it's just everyone's the same. And gosh, man, that there's so many good things that come with that. But on this journey, where I'm trying to go with this is when you sat down with the owner of the business, you didn't have visions of going to NFL draft day.
Correct. 100%.
You didn't have visions of you and your wife going to 8 universities, right? And so our podcast listeners are people that, man, we want to invest in ourselves, others in real estate. We want to be smart with what the Lord has given us. We want to be stewards. That's our word, right? A question I had for you, and so the disclaimer that I forgot to use that I usually do in the beginning is like, hey, I'm Dan Can. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. You are. I'm not. I'm not a real estate agent, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm an investor, man. I find deals. I all the great stuff. We have a lot of white collar people, successful, high earning individuals. In the tax world, right? You're around a lot of successful men and women that are business owners. What would you share with our listeners? Like, what are the top 3 things, character-wise or just situational-wise, that you see coming in and out of your office as you meet with them, as your team members meet with them? Because you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
What are some, routines? What are some habits that you've seen for these successful people to help our listeners invest in themselves, others, and what they're called to do?
Sure. Well, the first one I would say you have to be willing to take a risk. You kind of prefaced that conversation there, referencing some of the risks I took in my life. But, somebody told me during my decision-making process to leave and purchase the accounting firm that in life, if you're not willing to bet on yourself, who is? And that really struck me because it's the mindset of, if you expect every door to open, and not only for it to open, but for someone to pick you up and carry you through the door and set you at the table and, spoon feed you, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And, I think a lot of people think investment opportunities, business opportunities are going to come to them on such a silver platter. And realistically, I think God opens doors, but then gives us the free will to actually walk through those doors and follow and actually demonstrate faith in taking that leap. And so number one thing that I think successful business people have to do is they have to be willing to take risks. And, sometimes I think God actually allows us to fail so that we can learn from those failures, or maybe something comes of those failures that we will see at a later time. And so number one, I would say they have to be willing to fail. And then number two is, I'll give you 3, but number 2, I think they have to be willing to diversify into multiple areas. A real estate client, for example, will come into my office and say, I only believe in real estate, and that's all they ever invest in. And, housing crashes like 2008 or other times can happen. And if you have all of your eggs in one basket, you are essentially setting yourself up potentially for failure. When we talk about how we build our foundation spiritually, the same is true of our financial world. How do we build a strong foundation? And we do it through diversification, through allocating our resources and being good stewards of that in the multiple areas of our lives. And so I think that's a key that a lot of successful individuals demonstrate. And then I think the third one is being authentic. We can all think of someone we've come across in our business or financial dealings who acts one way and then lives another, or portrays themselves to the public in a way that everyone who comes in contact with them is inauthentic. And I think people see through that. And so, I really strive to be the same person that people talk to in my office about accounting. It's the same person that people talk to at a university if I'm talking to their college athlete son or daughter, to the same person I come to church as and talk to individuals with. So I think being authentic, being you, goes a long way. I joke with my clients all the time, there's smarter accountants out there. And what I can't give you in the knowledge that they may have, I will give to you in effort, enthusiasm, commitment, things that are intangibles that people can smell out if you're faking. So,
man, that's so good. So take a risk, bet on yourself, right? Diversify, be authentic. Man,
yeah.
write that down. I mean, I'm writing it down. I wrote it down. I'm gonna meditate on this. This is good. So we're gonna land this plane, as I like to say. I have a deal. I think you've heard me talk about it, where it's law of 72, right? I listen to a podcast. I go to a conference or a seminar. I give myself 72 hours where I need to implement something, right? Read and do. Like you gotta learn and do it. It just doesn't help to have it up here in your mind. What would you tell our listeners right there? They're on the fence in regards to betting on myself, or, I don't know, diversifying. I don't know. What do you think is something that we could come together to help communicate? Like, hey, within 72 hours, do this.
I think in life, especially in the current economic times we're at, where inflation's been high and cost of living has gone up, I think you see unhappy people, and they may be unhappy financially. They may be unhappy just from a lifestyle situation. I think sometimes people see numbers and they say, if I made X amount of dollars, that would be happiness. And the more you make in life, the less it matters. I get less excited about dollar producing opportunities than I used to. And that's because when you quit focusing on that, you can find better happiness. And so I think if you analyzed your life and you said, what are the areas that I'm happy in? What are the areas I'm not happy in? And what could I do to change that? That's where risk comes into play. If you told me I'm not happy in my job because of the stress level it provides, well, don't just sit and brood about it. What are you going to do about it? You know? And if the answer is, well, I'm not going to change careers, then you have to say, well, what do I do to change my job? What do I do to change the stress level it creates? How do I implement better management, et cetera? And maybe the answer is get a new job. I don't know. But I think a lot of times people will allow unhappiness to brood within their spirit and not be willing to do what you're doing, which is say, identify the problem, give it 72 hours to come up with a plan of action, and then actually do something about it. And that's the piece that people miss out on. So
I love it. Well, brother, I am so thankful that listeners get to hear your story, get to hear how God worked with the lawnmower and gas, get you 5 points in a multi-million-dollar business, and all the ways that you help people with their taxes. And you're definitely on our financial team, which is great. And we're partnering on some things, which is awesome. And man, if there's anything that you want to say to the team, this is your shot. I'm gonna after you're done, I'm gonna talk about my DanCan musing, and you inspired me. I'm gonna tell the DanCan musing about how I first bet on myself, and so you've definitely helped me with that. What would you like to say to our listeners as we leave?
I think I'm just gonna wrap it back to, you never know who you're going to come in contact and what it's going to lead to. And I mean, I could think of so many more examples outside of the two that I shared, where God has put me in the right place at the right time and introduced me to the right people. And I don't know how or why I was blessed with those opportunities, but I was. And I think they only succeeded because I gave them everything I had in the moment, and it opened more doors in front of me. And I don't know what the future holds. I have a lot of cool opportunities in front of me with some of these new areas I'm getting involved with. And God may close them and may squash some dreams, and I have to be willing to accept that. But in this moment, for such a time as this, I'm called to give 110% effort to the things I'm doing. And I think that would be my overarching goal and challenge to listeners, would be find that next thing in life and do it like somebody's watching and they're going to come recruit you. So
Amen, man. Hey, Kyle, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you for etching out time. I know you got something going on here. You're going to bless like 16 families and businesses today. So, hey, thank you, man.
So.
All right. Okay. Well, that was my man, Kyle Jordan, CPA. He has done a fantastic job. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back to our DanCan Musics.
Tired of missing real estate deals because you were waiting for the bank to approve your funding? At Wave Capital Investing, we get you funded fast with flexible terms and a streamlined process. No red tape, no stress. Apply today at wavecapitallending.com and ride the wave to your next successful real estate investment.
All right. So, walk with me through a journey here. It's 2000, the year 2000. I went to college, Central Washington University, to be a teacher. And I was doing my student teaching, which was one of the hardest things that I had ever done in my life. The Lord had placed me in a fantastic school district, Fife School District. It was amazing. I loved it. I had a fantastic teacher that was teaching me. I really wanted to teach at this school. And I was teaching fourth grade, and there was an opening for a fourth grade position. But as in every good story, there's a problem. And here's the problem. They already knew who they were going to put in that position because she had applied for a couple other teaching positions and hadn't gotten it. And so, I'm not going to say I was the most secure person. I was a little insecure at that time. And so I kind of listened to that narrative that this woman was going to get this position and why even apply. But man, I really wanted it. And I couldn't get rid of that desire, and Kyle talked about giving 110%. And I'll never forget it. This was a divine moment. I'm sitting at my desk, and like I said, student teaching was hard, and kids were gone. My student teacher that was teaching me was gone, and I'm by myself. I'm sitting at this desk, and I'm just lamenting the fact that I don't get to participate in this opportunity. I'd kind of folded. And I remember talking to myself, and I literally said out loud, there are movers and shakers in this world, and I am a mover and a shaker. I gave myself this pep talk. I got up, and I walked down to Mick Spanny. That was the principal's name. And he was kind of an intimidating cat. And so I walked up to his office, and, I'm 22. And I said, hey, Mick, do you have a second? And he's like, yeah, of course. I sat down, and I told him, I said, hey, I've done my pre-autumn here, practicum, and I'm doing my student teaching here. I really enjoy you as a leader. I really enjoy this school district. Like, I would really like to apply for this position. And, I could see the angst in his face, and he's like, Dan, listen, everyone loves you and you're doing a great job. But, I just want to be upfront with you that we kind of already have the person picked. And I looked at him, and with fire in my eyes, I said, Mick, just get me the interview. I will take care of the rest. And he kind of smirked and smiled, and he's like, okay, we can definitely do that. So fast forward into a couple months in the summer, I actually had a job offer from a junior high up north in Tequila, and it was sitting on my desk, and I didn't want to sign it because I knew I had this job interview with the district that I was the fourth grade practicum with. And man, I gave that interview everything I had. I gave 110%. I talked about how I was going to integrate businesses into the community, into the classroom, and, all these things that I was going to do to bring interaction and to bring care and love and accountability. And man, I went for it. And man, I'm so glad that I did, because after the interview, I walked out, and I'll never forget this. Mick put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, Dan, I know you have another job offer. Don't sign that piece of paper. And I got the job. And that job and some relationships in that job changed my life. So I want to encourage you, if you're at a spot where you're like, man, should I bet on myself? I'm going to encourage you to pray and do it. I'm also going to encourage you to find a mentor, someone who's gone before you, someone that you love and respect, a coach, a teacher, a businessman, a community member, an elder in your church. We didn't have an opportunity during the podcast to talk about that, but I fully and firmly believe in mentorship, discipleship, community. Bet on yourself. Go for it. Thank you so much for listening to my musing. We're going to take a break. I'm going to tie it all together after this.
One accident can change everything. Are you covered? At DanCan Insurance Agency in Spokane, we protect what matters most: your family, your car, your peace of mind. Get a free quote in a timely fashion. DanCan, because you can count on us. DanCan Insurance Agency specializes in auto, home, motorcycles, and life insurance. Call us today at 509-328-1422.
Okay, how do you put yourself to be in the right place at the right time? I'm going to tell you this. Write this down. Serve, 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 serve until they ask. I teach that to myself and my team. Serve, 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 serve until they ask. And Kyle has a fantastic story of that. He served that lawn, and then the gentleman asked him to buy his business. What a testimony. Character counts. That's obviously something that we spend a lot of time on. Give 110% effort, even while people aren't looking, because you never know who is. I really love what Kyle had to say about take a risk, bet on yourself, how to diversify your income streams, your funds, and then also to be authentic. In this world, man, that just goes a long, long ways. I really appreciate you taking time. If this podcast has brought you any value, if you could leave a comment on the Google reviews, or not the Google reviews, but the podcast reviews or Spotify, if you want to forward this to 3 of your friends that might be encouraged, this is the Hope Machine called the Invested Life Podcast by Dan Can. Hey, go out there and get it. And as always, love well and do good.
Great job.